Okay. Hi, everyone. So today we're going to talk over the art of influencing others. I just want a quick to note, my internet is not the best. So if I cut out, please wave your hands or something like that so I know, so I don't look dumb. But anyways, so we're going to get into it. But yeah, so I'll start off. My name's Savannah. I'm a political science major. I'm a third year senior here. I'm also the PR for ILA. Alexa can't make it today, but she's a filmmaking major and also a part of the ILA.
My name is Ilya. I'm a psychology and social work major, and I'm also part of the ILA. And our other co-presenter, Trisha, she's also a social work major, and hopefully she'll be able to join us later.
So right now we're just going to do like a quick icebreaker to kind of get your minds flowing with ideas about how you can be influenced when you don't know you can be influenced. Anyone can shout out answers or type in the chat, but we'll just go down the list and anyone can just jump in. Number one, do you use a plastic straw?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
Does anyone not use a plastic straw and give a reason why they would not use a plastic straw?
I don't use them, but only because I don't really use straws to begin with. I just drink out of my water bottle.
Is there anybody who carries like metal straws? I know they have like a lot of portable straws now that you can carry with you.
We have them in my house, actually.
Okie dokie. So I think even me, at some point in my life, I had a portable straw that like flipped open. I didn't use it as much, but it was during the time where it was like Save the Turtles was like such a big thing going on. And now I've just kind of slowly declined, especially because of the pandemic right now. You can't do so much with changing things up. But number two, are you private on social media? And if so, why?
I'm very private when it comes to like my social media experiences. But that just could be sorry, it just could be because I'm a like that kind of person. I'm very reserved when it comes to like, emotions or like feelings and everything. So it could be like a case by case basis. I'm sure other people have like different reasons.
Anyone else would like to share?
Uh, Jenna in the chat said that she prefers privacy when it comes to posting anything. And Willia agreed and said, I'm private because I don't like strangers seeing my photos and I like my privacy on social media. I'm totally private as well, but that's because earlier in my career, I got dinged for some photos that friends tagged me in online.
Mhm. Yeah, I know personally, I'm not private, but I've been private before on social media. And just because, like, as just a person, you don't know who can see your stuff, and you don't know what information's out there that they're able to track down. So it's always sometimes a good way to keep yourself safe. Number three, who looks both ways before crossing a street?
Sometimes, not all the time.
Yeah, me too. But I think that kind of shows that at a very young age, just influenced, you're told like stranger danger, or you don't cross the street without looking both ways. Those are very specific and like common usage of influence at the very young age. Lastly, who participated in social movements either in person or online?
What's considered like a? Can you give me an example of one to?
Did
Sorry, my brain says a
you?
little.
Oh, you're good. Did you, this is just one. Did you do the black square for Black Lives Matter? Do you post certain political things that are going on right now that are dealing with certain social movements like Black Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter, stuff like that?
Not a lot. I did at one point just for the like I never actually went to the rallies or anything because growing up I never really trusted the police even before this I never trusted any of them. I never felt safe mostly because of situations that happened in my from a bad experience that happened when I was with my dad. And at that point I never really trusted that any form of police force at that point. So seeing rallies like that are very useful, but with my experience, it was not my radars were just telling me stay away. So I would post stuff on social media, yeah, but going to the rallies, I was not going to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. And especially I know, like for me personally, I didn't participate in just social movements in person. I have two older parents. One of them is susceptible to COVID. So I really didn't go out like that because of big crowds and stuff. But I did do a lot of advocating online through my social media platforms and stuff to still kind of influence other people to support the movements.
I personally did attend in-person protests. And again, as we all know, this was kind of just when we were really starting to get a small idea of what COVID is. So my mom was really against it. However, we do have a personal connection in terms of police brutality in our family. So attending in person, and when she saw that it was local within her neighborhood, she was very prompted to go. She wanted to go. And another big reason that she was okay with going was that our township police were helping lead the marches. So there was cop cars to clear out the street for everybody to walk as well.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing for everyone, especially Francisco. I know it's hard to speak about some matters that could be vulnerable to your situation. Same with you, Aaliyah. Um, Anyone else have any last minute thoughts or any other type of just small influences in your life that you could think of?
I have one that's been with me since I was 4 years old, and it's pretty much guided me to the person I became today, and that was martial arts. That always influenced me to do pretty much what I believed was the right thing when it came to this. It gave me a little sense of justice and a big head, but at the end of the day, I was always in this case hit into the right direction.
Mhm. I know there's some people in the chat, Aaliyah, if you want to read off a few, if anything stands out to you.
Yeah, sure. So Elena had said that she felt that attending in-person protests and personally informing ignorant individuals rather than posting online was more beneficial. So rather than in rather than participating in not larger social movement, but the protest, taking that informational approach is something that she did. We also have Charles, who said that they donated to funds, and that was also another big thing in terms of the most recent social protest, in terms of donating to different organizations, signing a lot of petitions. That was a big way of helping participate and move these social movements forward. And then we have Wayla, who also said she did the Black Square and just posted and again informed through via social media about Black Lives Matter and Asian hate and protesting as well.
Yeah, all of those are great examples for how we influence, and especially the money thing. Your influence to donate to certain people or certain movements or groups that can align with your ideals or other reasons. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and keep on going. Okay.
So
Ilya, would you like to take this?
Oh, yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead. You're good.
The Tipping Point is a book written by Malcolm Gladwell, who basically phrases this tipping point as an idea, trend, or social behavior that crosses a threshold, tips, and spread like wildfire. So some of the questions that we just asked you, that they stem from somewhere, such as looking both ways before you cross the street. That's something that was taught and very much so emphasized during your younger years in elementary school. The plastic straw, the growing increase of like businesses not using plastic straws and instead using paper straws, the saving the turtle movement, the social movements. While Black Lives Matter was obviously present before George Floyd, but the increasing social injustices within the past year has definitely helped create a larger social movement on social media platforms. And again, the Black Square is another great example of how just one small change or movement, but expanding largely and then it becoming a trend. So you were seeing more people become more informed about the movement and also have to become more informed about the movement because all of a sudden you're seeing Black screens on social media and you want to know why. So he poses the question and seeks to explain sociological changes that mark everyday life. And like I said, crossing the street is basically common knowledge, but we learn it from somewhere. These things that we start to inherently do, don't talk to strangers, you learn as a child. So at some point they become trendy and then they become normalized. He also states that ideas and products and messages and behaviors spread like viruses do. So again, getting a message across and reaching it to that point where it's starting to get that attention, and then it tips, and then all of a sudden it's spreading like wildfire. So I think even with the virus, we can say at the very beginning, like the mask, it was slowly introduced, and before we really had an idea of what COVID was, you slowly started seeing people wear masks, but not everybody was wearing masks. And then you got to a point where you're seeing everybody in the store wear a mask all of a sudden. Then obviously we hit the tip, and we're getting mandated to wear a mask, and even states that weren't mandated to wear masks, everybody's all of a sudden wearing masks. It's becoming a normalized part of our everyday lives. So now we don't look at people when they're wearing a mask as to before we probably did.
Okay, so Gladwell also talks about the 3 rules of epidemics, which is technically like agents of change, what will cause change to happen. And he brought up 1, the law of the few. This means that like the successes of any kind of special epidemics is heavily dependent on the involvement of people with a particular rare set of gifts. This is also known as the 80-20, sorry for that typo, 80-20 method, which is the idea that 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people. So you can get a lot of your stuff done by just having a small group of people too. He kind of defines a few oh my gosh, what is it called? Few different groups that work in between the law of the few, like connectors, which are the people in a community who know large numbers of people and who are in habit of making introductions. This is just, for example, someone brings an idea to the table or reaches out. We, as a ILA group, we reach out to other communities and groups on Rutgers campus to kind of build a coalition to do presentations about certain matters. Mavens are people we rely upon to connect us with new information, known as information specialists. They're usually, so I would go say to VPVA for domestic violence information and statistics because they're known for helping violence prevention. And then salesmen are persuaders, charismatic people with powerful negotiation skills. I think everyone has met a salesman in their life, even if it's just a person trying to sell them just like the smallest thing on the street. These people really push out the ideas of what your group is trying to go for.
I also want to add that you can very much so see these people in your everyday lives, such as connectors. I know a few people, if I go outside with them pre-pandemic, they're known people in the store, walking to the car. They're just very well known within the community. Then we have our mavens, excuse me.
Mavens, yeah,
Thank
mavens.
you. Mavens were those people who always know quick facts, or if you have a question, they're always quick to know the answer, and it could be a random question, but they know the answer. And then salespeople, I think this is also very seen, I think, within school, in that you're able to persuade your friends to come join a club, persuade people to come take a class. So you can think of these people also within your everyday lives, and I think it helps to better understand the concept if you look through that perspective as well.
Gladwell also mentions two other rules of the epidemics, known as the stickiness factor, which refers to the specific content of a message that renders its impact memorable. I put in an example of Sesame Street because I think even shows like Sesame Street, everyone kind of grew up at a very early age learning about like crossing the street, stranger danger, how to be kind to other people. So that's like a stickiness factor because we grew up and we know exactly if someone said Sesame Street, what did you probably learn from there? A lot of people would probably be like, oh, I learned this, oh, I learned that, because it stuck to them. It was very plain and simple, and it was able for at a young age to for children to grapple in order for it to be a rule for the rest of their life. Also, lastly, the power of context, which is the idea that these epidemics are sensitive to the conditions we are in. And human behavior is sensitive to and strongly influenced by its environment. So I think a good example right now is police brutality and social media. I think since right now we're in a pandemic, a lot of people are on social media, and a lot of people have been sharing things that have been happening to them with just police brutality or any type of brutality that's been going on. And so this is a way that during an unforeseen time that we're actually being able to make change, even though we think we probably can't because we're not in person and we can't do certain things. But this is a way that these conditions have helped push more for change. Does anyone have any questions about Gladwell? If not, I'll just keep on going.
Or if anybody has any examples that can relate to the three rules of epidemics, so anything like the stickiness factor or power of context, or the law of the few.
I don't have anything necessarily to like any questions, but just to kind of go along with what you're saying about like the abundance of those kind of people. Like I feel like that kind of, it's kind of almost overarching. Like it kind of almost like sums up like, you know, like almost like stereotypes of like people that like you would encounter, or, like, you know, just like the personalities of like certain people that like you come across. Like they're very just like encompassing terms.
Yeah, and this is obviously just Gladwell's way of interpreting it, and there's also a lot more moving pieces. A lot of people that are more powerful behind the scenes than being upfront in front of everyone and being a charismatic character. But yeah. Okay, we just wanted to note real quick. There is obviously two types of influence and kind of like a middle ground if you want to put a middle ground in there. Obviously, there's positive influence, the impact you have on another person or group by pointing out strengths and virtues. And then negative influence, which it can be used to hurt people through whatever actions of influence that one came up with. This benefits the influencer but it harms the influenced. I think one that we can talk about is like drinking or drug usage. If you're pushing drugs to someone else that might not need it, or certain bad habits that could cause a negative influence in their life. Same with like, I know everyone probably heard DARE, the drug association thing at school or whatever. That was like a positive influence trying to push that drugs are bad, trying to keep younger people from getting negative influence from other places. But if anyone has any examples in their life that they think are positive influences and negative influences, go ahead, even if it's like a certain person too.
I think one we can all relate to in terms of positive influence is having friends within art classes, or just really having that peers to motivate you to do your work, and also help you like identify, say you're peer reading a paper, you're like, wow, you made a really good point here. That definitely helps and motivates that person to continue doing their work, or maybe continue writing if they were kind of stuck and didn't really want to feel like it. I've said this quite a bit. I know Michael's heard me say this, but being in person, it was just really motivating and a positive influence to see people get together and study for a test. And there's definitely been a few times I can remember where I said, I don't want to study for this test. I'm not going to study for this test. But then I see my classmates and then I'll go walk over to them, and all of a sudden they're having a positive influence on me and I'm studying for the test, despite the fact I said I didn't want to study for the test.
Any other want to jump in? Okay, great. We will keep on going then, and stop us if you get a example in your head.
So there are 4 types of influences. So we have character influence, quid pro quo influence, positional influence, and intrinsic influence. So character influence is you're persuading to do, you are persuading people to do things because they're connected to and believe in you. So say your friend's creating a project and wants your help, you want to do it because you believe in that person and you have that connection with that person. So I know me personally, sometimes actually this past semester I joined an organization called Project 555 because my friend Natan brought the idea to me and I believed in him and my connection with him. So I really believed in his idea. So that's one way to think of character influence. Quid pro quo influence are people trading actions for something of value in the future. This could be seen more of a manipulation than actual influence. So you can see this type of influence more in a political setting where people are trying to really sway things in their favor. You see this with politics, certainly in advertisements during campaign season, where they'll definitely try to use their different marketing schemes to really just shift voters to see in their view and look at their opponent negatively, and then offer some kind of thing that people are really going for. So that's where some of the mistrust can come from, but it also a way that politicians definitely start to get voters and people on their side and get those votes that they need. We have positional influence, which is people who do things because of their position or title. So this type of influence is used frequently, basically dealing with a boss or a hierarchical, I think I said that right?
Hierarchical. I can't say it either.
System. So people who do have that, obviously your boss or that higher level title, in terms of where they have that influence over the people who don't have that higher level title. You can even see this in group settings. I'm sure you guys have group projects. I know I have plenty of them, where in certain group projects I have, the teacher has made it so somebody has to be the quote unquote group leader, and that person has an influence on all of this simply because of their title. So there's more, I don't want to say there's more respect given, but there's more opportunity that's given to them to speak just because they had that, and they use that opportunity to influence us and how they think. Oftentimes they get the first say too in terms of their project ideas. And then the last one, intrinsic influence. So being provided information and feeling empowered to make a decision that makes most sense for the team in the situation. And this creates engagement from your peers or colleagues. So this, I think, could be more of a setting where you don't have the hierarchical system and everybody's really working together in terms of the feeling of what they want to see. You can, again, see this within social movements, people who gather together to make social change. There's a collective goal that everyone wants to reach, and they're really working off of empowering each other to ultimately reach and solve any problems that they all see in common.
Now we have the 7 Eyes of Influence, which is from Forbes, basically on business in general, but it can also be in just regular lifestyle. First is identify the results you want. It is hard to develop a great plan when the results are not clear to everyone. Everyone will just decide where they're going to go, and it's going to be very hard to figure out what is going on. Illustrate your credibility. This causes people to believe in what you're saying and advocating for. This could be even at a job application and job interview. You might write down past jobs that you have that shows your credibility to the people, which allows them to realize that you are a credible person and you've done certain things in the field before. Invest the time in getting, invest the time in getting to know the people you wish to influence. Empathy is a great trait to have while influencing others, especially like during this time. Most team members that you have, and even just colleagues and students right now, are all probably going through something right now. So it's always good to have that trait of empathy with you, to kind of put yourself in their shoes and realize that they might have some struggles right now, and that could help even push your business farther, because you are advocating for those people too. And also, like, say you want the best for your workers, that would be a trait of empathy, rather than just letting them be who they are and not letting them grow, or causing really bad things happening in the workplace, or students around you are saying bad negative things. Empathize with people, and that will help invest. Invite them to share their ideas, leads to better internal communication, making a strong bond. If you let people have a foot in the door, it will help create creative push in anything that you're doing. Even say like you're stumped as a regular human being, someone on your team might have a better solution that could cause you to have a good end goal. Investigate options that lead you to common ground. This goes in hand with invite. Obviously, you're going to have different ideas coming to the floor, And you need to find a way to reach a common goal in between those if it becomes clashing. Then we have intend an outcome that meets everyone's needs. Helping the team visualize the win gives team members the ability to start developing a path to get there. I think this kind of goes in hand with the identify the results you want. If you have an outcome that everyone is able to actually get to, that will help with your visualizing the end goal of identifying the end goal that you want. Lastly is improvise as needed. Adapting to certain team members' needs and unforeseen circumstances is a great tool to keep influencing others. This is really good during this time, especially because of just what's going on. Family members probably are needing more attention right now. And just knowing with the same as being empathetic to the people that you're working with, that they might be struggling during a certain time, mental health and stuff like that, or other factors that could cause a bump in the road. And that's when you need to improvise. But yeah, does anyone have any questions before going on?
I just have kind of like something maybe to like think about a little bit. Given that like social media is such a big influence to people, personally, like what would you think the most I guess used term would be, like for like out of the 7 eyes of influence, like what do you see as like the most prevalent, like being utilized?
Does anyone want to answer before I jump in or Aaliyah jumps in? Anyone have their own ideas?
I mean, just to get it rolling, I like when I saw the slide personally, I thought the first thing that jumped out to me was the illustration. Like it feels like illustrating your credibility, whether that be in a legitimate way or, you know, kind of like I don't know how to put it, but just lying, I guess, you know, just kind of like fluffing the truth to establish like a false sense of credibility. I feel like that's like something you see, you know, like with everybody, you know, if you scroll down Instagram, it's, you know, that's all it is essentially.
Yeah, I think you're right. Go, Michael.
So I totally agree with you, Brandon. And I think this is like one of our most pressing challenges with like online discourse. It's not just social media, it's like the news, right? How do you differentiate between the credibility of different information sources, right? You know, we say we now live in a post-truth era, and without some firm criteria for determining like fact or science from pseudoscience, or you know, how do you determine like what's true and false in the world around you?
I feel like personally it kind of incorporates a little bit of all of them, or at least it uses all of the 7 eyes in one idea, which is interesting. Where it says like identify the results that you want. When you I think of people who are like fitness influencers, good people who want to show, hey, this is what I'm going for, this is my goal. Illustration being your going for credibility, which is like you all said, when it comes to media, news and everything, you invest a lot of time into this, which is where it goes to investment. You invite others to go into your ID, to share their ideas, which is where boards come up, and people just post something, whether it be political or anything like that. You want people to share ideas. Investigation, pretty much just like same thing. You want more people to kind of like come to a common ground, but they sometimes don't. This is where the arguments come in. I can see intend an outcome that meets everyone's needs. I can see intent being pretty much like, I think that one's the most difficult to pretty much to kind of find an example for personally. But when it comes to improvise, like people just do, like when it comes to comedy, people just do random things, and for some reason different outcomes come out and it becomes hilarious or something like that. But in a way, I feel like social media, mostly illustration, but I feel like I feel like illustration's the more common one of all of them when it comes to social media, but social media as a whole incorporates every single one of them.
I agree. Well said, Francesco.
Yeah, and I just want to extend a little bit more off the idea or the vehicle of social media. And when you look at some of the most popular social media influencers, especially those who have been able to not just stay on social media platforms, but gravitate towards those bigger platforms, such as like news channels or getting these interviews with people in academic settings. And that's largely because they're able to embrace these 7 eyes of influence, identifying what they specifically want from their classroom, from their platform, illustrating their credibility. And like you said, the fitness gurus on social media, that's a big thing where people are like, I want to see your results. I want to see results you prove. So there's a lot of before and after pictures going on, investing the time to get to know who their followers are and what they want from them. So really engaging with people within the comment section or having those Instagram lives and allowing people to join in and inviting again their followers or people who are interested in what they have to offer to share their ideas. And I'm a big YouTube person just because I don't use other social media platforms, but you'll see this a lot where these influencers are saying, well, I want to know what you guys want to see. And that's something that they strongly emphasize to make sure that they keep their viewers engaged and investigating. So what I'm seeing now is, especially as I think there's a shift kind of going on in social media, or at least for influencers, is that a lot of people want to embrace this new identity a little bit. However, they have to continue to keep their followers or try to keep their audience engaged at the same time. So it's trying to find a middle ground, really. And intent is definitely a difficult one for me to kind of translate to, but like I said, in terms of investigating and finding a new personality to kind of embrace that allows their old supporters to continue to follow them while staying true to themselves. And Improvise is one influence, one of the 7 eyes I want to just very much so emphasize in terms of how we do this in everyday lives and overcome our challenges overall. And that ability to be able to quickly say, okay, this happened, but we're going to keep pushing forward, or again, adapting to those needs around you. And during this time, these unprecedented times where things happen in the blink of an eye, we're so quickly asked and having to rearrange our lives. So seeing other people quickly improvise definitely helps to motivate you to understand how to quickly improvise in case you're in those settings. And again, create those, I want to say emergency like understandings of what to do and kind of preparing yourself. There we go. Preparing yourself for those emergency situations or drastic changes.
I actually found this might be a good one for intent, and that's the follower and subscriber system that a lot of social medias have. Like I know when it comes to YouTube or Twitch, everyone has a form of milestone they want to get to. Oh, I want to get to this number. I want to get to this number. And when they get to that number, a lot of people, if you watch a lot of gaming guys, people like Markiplier, PewDiePie, these guys have had different milestones, and just thank everyone for their for being there for them and going on them with this journey. And that kind of stuff I feel like would kind of go for intent, because it's you looking at this is helping a team, whereas you plus the community kind of trying going towards a winning goal, and kind of seeing that path be paved as you watch them do so and try to help them to go into that path.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on that, I think, Markiplier, PewDiePie, and other gamers and just YouTubers in general, these milestones don't just help them in the long run. I know I like YouTube, I like watching YouTube. I find kind of like that's where I like to go if I'm struggling with something and I just need to clear my brain. And so it's not just that Markiplier or PewDiePie or is getting all these followers and you don't get anything out of it. It keeps them going. It keeps them wanting to put out content for people. If they slowly lose followers or they stop posting regularly, it causes kind of like a strain in the relationship between the viewer and them. So yeah, I totally get it.
So I want to try and grab this for a second and shift it to a different context, because I think this online conversation is very interesting and important for our present circumstances. But at the same time, this is just one way of, or one context in which to understand influence, right? And I think it's the one that we're most familiar with because we actually have influencers, right, on social media. But, you know, I wonder where everyone sees the value of influence in other areas of their lives, right? You know, in communicating an idea that you're passionate about to other people, in thinking about your professional career, and, you know, how do you influence that person who might hire you for the job of your dreams to recognize that you're the best candidate for that role. When you're thinking about like academics, and in your writing, when you need to make an argument or a thesis statement on a topic, right? How do we leverage these concepts of influence? Because I think it's one thing to do it with pictures on Insta, but it's another thing to know how to engage other human beings, to Elena's earlier point, in like physical contexts, to communicate ideas in such a way that they spread, that they contribute to that information transmission that Gladwell talks about.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention we as people, just as an individual, use these influences on ourselves. All of us kind of have a goal that we want to make, whether it's you want a certain body type or you want to complete an assignment at a certain time. All of us influence ourselves, and we can negatively influence ourselves too, because we deal with certain things that cause us to negatively think about ourselves. But like we invest the time into ourselves and like our bodies. We invite ourselves to have more ideas. We don't just pigeonhole ourselves, and we should try to not pigeonhole ourselves to just a certain idea. We investigate common ground options and stuff, because say I want to have ice cream, but I want to go to the gym. Okay, common ground. I'm going to go to the gym and then I'm going to have ice cream to make me feel better. I don't know. But we all do this on a daily basis, even if we don't notice it, as just ourselves. And I think also the way you influence yourself is the way that you influence another person. If you negatively have negative thoughts or influence yourself in a negative way, that negative influence that you have can lead to another person having a negative influence or just a negative attitude. If you bring a positive influence into your own life, that can cause a domino effect where other people feel more positive with you. And that's how you push more influence. If you know what you're influencing yourself with, positively or negatively. But yeah. Okay, so we just have, again, if there's any questions, you can feel free to stop us at any time. We just wanted to end with just a couple of discussion questions. We don't have to go over all of them. We've had really great discussion, but I just wanted to ask a few things just to get your mind still rolling. Number one, how can you influence during a pandemic or other unfamiliar times? I know we kind of went over this, but is there any other way that you have influenced or have seen other people influence during this time?
I think one example could be like the influence of like people investing their money during the pandemic, like into stocks and like other options and stuff like that. Like people who weren't inherently well versed in that before. One of my friends, I think you were talking about it earlier, where during this time they've just started researching and getting more involved in it, and through that they've kind of influenced other people. Like you see what I'm doing here, kind of just like sharing like that kind of connection, like this is like where I started, I'm like kind of I'm like you in that sense, and then this is where you can go from there. I think a lot of people kind of profited from that sort of influence that the pandemic had on us.
Anyone else have a different thing? I really like that stock thing, really brought us full circle to the beginning of our discussion. Aaliyah, would you read off a couple comments that I see popping up?
Yeah. So Allison just said that speaking up in general, having a voice and projecting knowledge you have to others and need in the right space. Yeah. So I think that's very important. And I think that also can go to the impact of speaking up and the influence we can have by sharing our own personal experiences and the impact that can have for others truly in their lives, whether that be personal, academically, professionally. So I think that's a great way to really extend your influence and really have an impact with your influence, just simply using your voice. One of the best tools you have, or best tools out there. I will shift it to the next question if anybody wants to answer that, and come off mute. And which of the 4 types of influence do you believe works best, even if it's just for you?
I'll bring us back to the slide too.
I think there's a difference between what works best and what is best, right? Um, I think positional influence is the one that we're most frequently subject to. A professor says, write this paper or fail my course. They have the power to do that, so we do it. So, a parent says, do this thing or you're grounded, right? So we do it so we don't get grounded. So I think in terms of like forcing results from people, positional influence is probably the easiest way to get things done, but it's coercive force, right? And is that going to contribute to building healthy relationships? Is that going to contribute to creating stronger communities, right? And getting people to actually care about ideas? I think to that point, this idea of intrinsic influence is probably the best, if not the most. It takes more time, right? It requires building relationships. It requires getting to know other people. But if you can connect with them meaningfully in such a way that, to the definition on the slide, that they're empowered to make a decision that makes the most sense for the team or for themselves or for the situation, that's really the result that you want, right? You don't want somebody to do what you say just because you say it. You want somebody to listen to what you have to say because there's value and truth in it.
Yeah, and I think for me, relating back to the professor just grading you poorly on a paper, I think even with that, I put more effort into papers that I feel like I have a little bit more of a leeway to pick my topic or certain things. When it's a really harsh thesis that you have to meet certain requirements and talk about a certain topic, it can be very like that positional influence. Like, this is how it's going to be, and this is what you need to write, or else you're going to get a bad grade. And so I know for me, personally, I kind of put very little effort into it because I don't feel like I have a say in what is going to be like, I don't have a say in putting in my ideas or anything like that. So I think like definitely intrinsic influence, even in that matter, I think just helps. It does make me feel more empowered when I'm able to really do some research in a certain field. And I kind of get more, I'm more happy when I can do a paper like that. And I usually get a better grade when I do papers like that. I usually get like really bad grades when I do the positional influence papers. But yeah.
I kind of want to touch on this in the aspect of leadership, and that as a leader, you can take these all and use them positively. I think with positional influence, that's something like I mentioned before. It's sometimes you don't have the choice of being the leader of the group, or you're assigned to that title. And I think that more so touching on character influence or intrinsic influence can really help to promote healthy leadership, positive leadership, and relational leadership as well, in terms of making sure that you're being a role model for others, and that you're really empowering those around you to ultimately accomplish the goal of the overall team. And even with the quo pro quo influence, is really using your privilege that you have, acknowledging privilege that you have, and using privilege that you have to really benefit others, and bringing more resources and opportunities to those who don't have that same privilege. So as you kind of think of these 4 types of influence, I definitely recommend thinking of them through aspect of how you can use them and how this influence relates to leadership to ultimately help you improve as a leader yourself.
Being aware of time, if anyone has any last minute thoughts, we're not gonna, or even if you want to talk about number 3, you can, but we are short on time. If anyone has just last minute questions, examples, or ideas, feel free to do so now. And then also just wanted to give a quick reminder that to build off your influence, you can go to our next event called Organizing for Collective Impact, using your influence and organizing it, and getting a good impact out there through movements or anything of so forth. But yeah.
And if no one has any questions or wants to stick around, just ask the questions in a more personal setting, feel free to do so. But we want to thank you all for attending, and thank you for all for your input and great discussion that we were having. And again, like I said, if you have any questions and want to know more about upcoming events or the ILA overall, please feel free to stick around. We are hosting this workshop again tomorrow during free period, so from 11:20 to 12:20 p.m. Make sure you send the link to a friend. You can tell them to access the link on the Engage page. And yeah, thank you for coming out.
Thank you.